Hello and welcome here for another healing story. Today we've got Chanin Zellner. I'm super excited to hear how Chanin went about her healing journey, what kind of things that she found helpful there. So I really appreciate you taking the time to share that with us so we all can learn from you and be inspired and create some hope and sparks for people who may not quite feel that they're through yet. They're kind of people who are still stuck in the crisis. I always want people to know too that, you know, even though my life looks so good now, I have so much joy and peace and stuff, it wasn't always like that. There was some really dark times, and I think that was the case for you too. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about that with us there. So thank you, Chanin.
Oh, my pleasure. I am so excited to be here. And wow, it's like, gosh, where to begin? When I was 2, no, but yeah, I experienced probably, decades, 30 decades of trauma between, starting in my childhood, which then led to, abusive marriages. So, most of my life, let's just say, how old am I now? So I'm 53. So, really up until the last 4.5, 5 years, I lived from a continual state of fear. I was constantly in that hypervigilant mode. Lions, tigers, and bears. The world was out to get me.
Yeah.
Yes. And that, and we can get to that, more, but like now I live, you see my joy thing, I live in a constant state of joy.
Yeah.
And it's completely different and it's beautiful. And I never imagined it could happen.
That's so true. I felt the same way. I couldn't, but when I was still in a crisis, I seriously, I didn't think that would be possible for me to feel like. I couldn't even imagine what that would be like because it was so distant. I had no concept of it.
Exactly. It was so foreign. Like it wasn't even, you weren't even able to imagine it because it was not even a tangible thing that was possible.
Yes. Yeah, and I like that you have the word joy as well. I've got a note sticking here for me of joy as well. It's one of my values. I know joy doesn't come easy for me. Even now, I still have to work for it, or I have to create it. It's like it's not a natural state that I wake up in. Most of the time, I do, but I know I also can create it for myself. Yeah, it's
yeah. Do you want to hear a funny story about it, about joy?
Yes.
Okay. So my mentor, her name's Allison J.K., and she's the one who I met 4.5 years ago, who really started me on this really intensive healing journey. I've been, we're actually all healing our whole lives. We just don't realize it. But this has been an intense, period of time for me. And a few years ago, we went on a retreat to Glastonbury, England. And we went to the chalice well there. And so we were supposed to pick a word for the year that we wanted to embody. So, in my mind, I chose the word love. I want to embody more love because I didn't know what love, really, it was self-love, especially what that really meant. But someone else ahead of me took that word. So I had to have my own word because that was the way I was. So I chose the word joy. I was given the word joy. So she has us bend down, by the well. It's got a grate around it. And we're supposed to say our word into the well. So here's me. I'm bending down and I yell, joy, like, as angrily as I possibly could. And like 3 times she was like, Shannon, can you do that again, please? And then for my birthday, I think it was probably that October after that, she made this Facebook meme for me, which it's my screensaver. It's 2 little girls hugging each other. And it says, what would it take for you to choose joy no matter what? And I finally am at that state where no matter, my default state is joy instead of fear. And, I'm a human being, so I still dip down into fear and worry and doubt, but I just pop right back up. Sometimes it takes a couple days, but that's rare. That's really rare. Like actually, I'm just right now going through something and I had to just, get out of it. And I'm not going to be like this. I don't wish to be like this. I'm going back up into the joy state.
Yes. Yeah, once you experienced it, isn't it? It's like, even at the beginning, it might just be a glimmer or a spark of it. But once you start living from that place, yes, we're human beings. You're still going to, like I said, you're still going to experience difficult times. You're still going to have, anxiety, maybe even jealousy and all these kind of emotions as well. But you bounce back so much quicker. Like in the past, it would have been a few months back in, of therapy sessions. Well, now it's like a couple of days, or sometimes even within hours, that I can turn it around. Yeah.
And it's just beautiful. So amazing. Yeah. It's so amazing. And that's part of, where I am now. And of course, it's like, I want everyone to experience and like, I get choked up. I want everyone to experience what I am living now. Yeah. And that's my mission, now too, is to share it and unconditional love with everyone, and for everyone to learn to have that within themselves, which is a long journey.
Would you like to share a few tips or for someone who still doesn't have that experience of joy at all, which is still a foreign concept? What are some sort of things early on that you found helpful in exploring that a little bit more for yourself to bring that into your life?
Yeah. So probably the past, I'm counting, how old are my children? Gosh, man, it's been a long time. So probably the past 20 years or so, especially. And in hindsight, going back to my early teens, I was always introspective and reading and on this path. It's just I'm slower than other people, which is not judgmental at this point. It's just a recognition of fact. It's my divine journey, right? Yeah. But there are lots of. Let me listen to what wants to be said. There are a lot of holistic things we can do to start to live more in that joy state. There are things like yoga and meditation and qigong or tai chi. Those are some, and journaling helps to get all of that stuff out because it's stuck energy, which we can talk more about. And it's just that release. I know when I was a teenager, my dad got me a punching bag, one of the small ones. Actually, he bought me both of them. And especially, as a teenager, you're regularly ticked off at your parents for one reason or another. So, so I would go downstairs and I would just beat the heck out of that bag. So, exercise is my point, is something to just get that adrenaline and that stress, that energy out, and it's not necessarily curing you, but it's at least expelling that energy and getting rid of those symptoms in that moment so you can get back to a calmer state of being.
So true.
So that's that part. Yeah.
The physical, isn't it? And for me, it was too that to allow myself to be playful, like in childhood. I was still working with children at that point, so I always had Play-Doh in the house. I was like, okay, let me do this. I'll give yourself permission to explore that and see what it feels like. It might be a spark of joy, it might not be, but at least you tried it, and honoring that process and acknowledging, like, I tried it. It's
because last so two Novembers ago, I that creativity thing in whatever form it takes can be helpful. And on Facebook, in my Facebook newsfeed, I kept seeing showing up this ad to do this painting meditation class for 22 days with the goddess Tara, who I was working with. And I'm like, I'm not a painter, I don't draw, but it kept showing up. So I'm like, okay, right? It's a sign. And it was this 22-day process where you had a canvas, and each assignment you would do that day, and then the next day you would paint over the previous day, with the ultimate goal of painting Tara. And I wish I had it up here, but it was so cathartic. He also used this book to go through the process, meditation part of it. it was so cathartic and so healing, because I was a perfectionist. So try something new, like painting, when you're a perfectionist, right? And I finally, you know, I remember this one particular day, like I just needed it to be perfect. I worked on it for hours and hours and hours. And finally, you know, my guidance and whatever was just like, Chanin, seriously, you can just paint over it.
Yes.
And it was like, oh, I can. And I whitewashed the whole thing and I started all over. And like that was such a huge release for me with that perfectionism, that whole process. And it was amazing. So yeah, art or creativity of any kind, or maybe it's ballet, or maybe it's going and doing stand-up comedian stuff, you know, something to get that creativity going. It's that childlike stuff. It's can be for so many people so cathartic and healing.
And I think especially when it's the art thing is, I am not because my mom's an artist. So I am not creating this to be in an exhibition. I am creating this for myself. This is for my healing. It's to remind myself, this doesn't have to be perfect. You know, we just literally had a workshop for the tribal community on mandala drawing. And
nice.
I don't know. We were showing, and it's not perfect. You see, I only just started.
But it's still beautiful. Oh wow!
It's like you said, it's such a beautiful process to do this, you know. And it felt like, oh my gosh, this half circle, it's too big, and this one's too small, and it's not centered. It's like, let it go. It doesn't matter. It's the process. It's calming. It's just nice to allow yourself to do something different that I am not naturally talented or good at, and let that be okay. Yeah, that's hard, isn't it?
It's really hard, and something's coming in, and that does kind of relate to our healing journey as well. It's not perfect. It's messy. But the end result, no matter what it looks like, it's beautiful. And the end result doesn't mean the end result, because healing is a journey. It's not even a destination, because we're always evolving. No matter how much work we've done, there's always something else that comes up. But it's that kind of reminded me of that it's a healing, it's a journey. It's not perfect, it's messy, but it's still beautiful.
And I love the way you tried out so many different things, and I believe you were quite on a spiritual path as well, is it? Which I know this is not for everyone, but I always love it when people share that too, to open people's mind. Oh, maybe this is something that I could try too, because I was very spiritual in my very young, 10, 12 teenage years till I discovered alcohol. Then I went with a different direction for a while, but now I'm back. The things we do, they're all coping mechanisms and to help us survive and get through. So, but I'm always curious when people take on paths like that. It's different to going the traditional way, seeing a psychiatrist and getting a ton of medication and manage it that way, which is not wrong either. I've done that too.
Which I've done that. Yep.
It's to be open, isn't it, and exploring them. And now when you're looking back, how do you feel about yourself having tried out all these and going all these different paths and detours, perhaps even, some things you might feel like, oh, I wish I didn't try that. But I guess you get to a place where you can hold yourself with compassion in even for those times where you did the detours.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I thought maybe this would be helpful too, to give people just an idea of what I have been through, so they have a real idea of the contrast of who I was and what I went through and who I am now. Does that sound okay?
Yes, that's good.
Yeah. So what I discovered was that around, and I don't know the age for sure, but very young, 4, 5, 6-ish in there, my grandfather molested me.
Yeah.
And actually all of the girls, my cousins and such. And then it was a one-time incident, yet my whole life, and this is, trigger worthy, right?
Yes.
But whenever he would hug us, he would always manage to put his hands on the side of our boobs.
Yeah.
So I eventually learned how to hug him, so he couldn't do that because he's my grandpa. I'm supposed to hug him, right? And, so I had that. On top of that, I was a middle child and a middle cousin. So I had all that middle child stuff going on. Nobody wanted to play with me. And I was always the crybaby and the over emotional one and being picked on, for that. So then emotions were bad. So I had to do what I could to stifle them until then, I would explode and they're like, what is wrong with her? I'm stifling this.
Yes.
On top of that, without going into great detail, how can I phrase it? Because of my dad's legal problems, when I was 10, we became fugitives from the law, meaning we ran, we changed our identity 3 times.
Wow.
3 times we changed our names.
Wow.
And had, and had to move and change my names again. So I never had that security. I never had that stable foundation in my life. We were always hyper vigilant, watching for the men to come and take my dad away.
Yes.
And my dad was a wonderful person. So that was 11 years of my life until he died at 46 from all the stress. So there was that. And what was really, and then I'll go, and then because of all these other things that happened in my life, and I didn't love myself, I couldn't receive love from others because of the sexual trauma. Like I wanted a hug, but I didn't let people hug me. I remember I've seen several pictures where my younger sister, who was all cuddly, we'd be standing like next to my dad and she'd be all cozied up next to him. And I'm like, don't touch me, which is so sad. I craved love. And so then when we so often are like that, then we become people pleasers and we need external validation of our self-worth. I became an overachiever to get that validation of my self-worth, all those sorts of things. And all of this, led into, problems with alcohol and the coping mechanism. And then I ended up in 2 abusive marriages.
Yes.
That spanned 16 years of my life. And, I had 3 kids and, it was verbal and emotional. And it's so weird, especially for women who've been abused, like we'll take the verbal and emotional abuse, but physical abuse, no, don't hit me. Right. But the emotional and verbal abuse is just as devastating. And I feel harder to heal from.
That's so true. That's so true. Especially the emotional. It's so invisible. Because you can't see it, isn't it? But I love it the way they put more emphasis in that, especially in childhood, in the childhood period, that this is actually the most damaging. Not so much the physical and sexual abuse, and that is damaging too, but it's the emotional abuse that actually affects our development the most. That absence of someone being in tune with your emotion and co-regulating with you and doing that, and that has such a devastating impact. And that was missing in childhood. Then like you said, even in adult life, we pick partners and we create the same thing, and because it's so familiar. Isn't it?
It's familiar. We don't know any difference.
Yes.
And it was interesting. In my first marriage, I didn't realize that I was being abused.
Yes.
Until I met a friend whose mom was a volunteer at a local, battered women's shelter.
Yes.
And then my friend, she's giving me that perspective, like, Shanna, this isn't normal. I'm like, it's not?
Yeah.
I thought that's what relationships were.
Yeah.
And then after I left him, divorced him, I went into the second marriage. It was even worse. And now I'm married again and I have a wonderful husband.
Yes.
But I think God said, oh, okay, let's give her a break, because I sure as heck was not in a still very good state when I married him. I was a little better with my emotional well-being, but
But I think, you think at the core of it, there was still too that being worthy of love and being able to love yourself. And that, I think when those pieces are missing, then we stay in abusive relationships a long time. I want to acknowledge here that some men also are in abusive relationships, because it is often a taboo, or people don't acknowledge it. It can be the other way around too. It's not always just the men who are abusive. Sometimes female can be the same, and it's just as devastating and damaging to a person. Yeah, but it's
exactly.
But it's, I think at the core, it's that feeling worthy, isn't it? I don't know.
So, you know, part of the healing journey that I've been on the last 4 years, unexpectedly, when I started working with my mentor, Allison, I joined her program. I wanted to create a nonprofit to help veterans who were transitioning out of the military. And I wanted to grow my bookkeeping business more, because I had a bookkeeping company. And that ended up getting trained in energy medicine. And so that's what I do for a living now. And so what I know from that, and there's a reason I'm going into this, is because we all come into this world with at least one of 3 core soul wounds. And that's, I'm not loved, I'm not worthy, and I'm not safe. Yes. And I had all 3. You know, and then you throw into that your lineage, which is something I've been really focused on lately, is healing those ancestral patterns that get passed on to us, not only from behavior, but actually genetically. Yes. And that's a whole other thing we could talk about for hours, you know, epigenetics. But with that understanding now, you know, everything that we are experiencing, you can be boiled down to one of those 3 things. And it's become so enlightening for me from a conscious standpoint, you know, that understanding, that cognitive, I guess is what I meant, to when I am feeling something, I'm like, all right, what is this boiling down to? You know, and all of it goes down into our childhoods or pre-birth, depending on your beliefs. And if one believes in reincarnation, you know, things can be passed on that way. So it's never our fault. Yes. What we're feeling now, not doing anything about it is our responsibility, right? Yeah. But what we came into the world with, we had no control over. That's it. Yeah. And obviously our childhoods. Yes. So true. It's not, and what I always like to people remind, it doesn't, you know, no amount of happiness or joy that you have today or tomorrow is ever going to take away the fact that what happened to you in childhood was not okay, that it was criminal, it was abuse, it wasn't unjust. But you know, but we can still have that joy, because for the longest time I thought, if I'm happy and joyous, then that means like maybe my trauma wasn't that bad, you know, or that might be giving my abusers that message that it wasn't. It's like, no, I need to drop that. And you know, it's to some extent, it sometimes feels like I'm a completely different person, like, you know, my teenage years or even early 20s and stuff to what I'm now, the way I see things, the way I think about things, whether they are externally or internally, isn't it? It's like, perhaps you feel the same, you know, when you were reactive to now you probably don't react in ways like you used to in your teenage years now. Or even as a 45-year-old. Yeah. It's just, it can change, and it's so beautiful that the way you turned your whole life around. And now I think it did, and I can never even say that word, ancestral healings for people. And it's beautiful now that you can pass this on and help other people to heal theirs, and a lot help them along their journey, isn't it? It's so different because you have a lived experience, you know. I was where you were, kind of thing, you know. I can resonate with that. It's so powerful in a way. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, it really is. And I get so excited, like I thought there was something else I was going to say, and maybe it will come back to me. But on Saturday, I did a workshop at this metaphysical shop. I'm doing ancestral patterns healing at. And it was just a 30-minute workshop called How to Transform Your Life Via Your Chakras.
Yes.
And so I did what's called a vibrational upgrade clearing statement. And so then I tune into people intuitively, their emotional bodies, to help start to release that from their systems. And, once we were done with it, I always do it with my eyes closed and such. I open my eyes and, I don't know, like 9 out of the 10 people, I think there were like 10 people, were crying.
Yes.
And for me as a practitioner, I'm like, yes, I made them cry because they're releasing all of that stuck energy that's in their bodies. And it's such a beautiful experience. And that was just from a 10-minute clearing statement, so I get so excited, to be able to do full energy medicine sessions for people, or these ancestral patterns healing sessions where they can meet an ancestor and such. So it just, oh my gosh, I can just do them all day long. It makes me so happy.
It is so beautiful. It's that being moved kind of crying. And for so many of us traumas, right, crying is often the hardest. For some people, they can't cry at all, and other people, they feel like they can't stop crying. It can go either way, but it's that relief you get, isn't it? And it's beautiful when you can facilitate it for other people, when you can be there and hold that space and have that experience for people, that is. And by the way, guys, we will have the links down below in the description for you guys to check out Chanin and see about her workshops. And Chanin also has done a workshop on chakra healing for the Thriver community. So that was really beautiful. So thank you so much for that. But we will have all those details for you below, because I think it is beautiful to explore those avenues as well, to always keep an open and curious mind. So, okay, I have tried cognitive behavioral therapy, I've done the dialectical behavioral therapy group workshops and whatever, I've done EMDR and all those avenues, and you feel like there's still something missing, something's not right. Maybe try something like that. It's
Well, the wonder, because I've done, the cognitive therapy and the EMDR, and the EMDR was actually pretty helpful. I remember that. But the wonderful thing about energy medicine is we don't have to sit and talk about the stuff that happened to us. It's not about the cognitive stuff. It's getting into, because all these traumas, that's what I wanted to say. The traumas and such we've been through get trapped in our bodies, and that's what causes our disease and our aches and pains and our emotional problems. It's that impact of it all. And so when I do sessions, or any energy medicine practitioner does sessions, we're not sitting there talking about the details of all the things that happen to you, which so many people won't go into therapy and get help because they don't want to talk about it. And so this is another method of healing for people who don't want to talk about it. And sometimes, the memories are still might pop up, but we cut that mind-body connection. So for instance, for me, I remember this so clearly in one of the retreats. We were in a circle and I just matter of factly said, my grandfather molested me. There was no crying. For me, there's no emotional reactions, like the sky is blue. Yeah. And that, I remember it so clearly because I was like, wow, I had no emotional reaction to that incident, which was so life-changing for me. And that's why I love this work so much, and sometimes you just forget the memories entirely. Because I've had that happen where someone will say, remember, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, nope, I don't even remember it anymore. But what I wanted to make clear, Tanja, too, although your audience generally has had challenging experiences, but trauma is not always abuse or neglect or those other sorts of things. It also can be simple things that are said to us non-maliciously by our parents, like children are meant to be seen and not heard. Now, they don't mean that in a mean way. That's not their intent. They just want you to be quiet and go away because the adults are talking, right? The adults are talking. But as a child, depending on what else has been going on, and if it's something they say to you a lot, I mean, one time is probably not going to have an impact, but if that's their method of parenting, you're not meant to be you're not meant to be heard. So your voice doesn't matter. No one cares what you have to say.
Yes.
And so then you stop speaking your truth. You stop talking about your feelings. You're afraid to read a book in 4th grade, because that was me. Like, oh my gosh, don't make me read aloud in class.
Yes.
And it can be related to little things like that in your childhood that other people would not consider traumatic, but it still creates that traumatic impact on you. And because I've met lots of people who say, well, I had a good childhood. I didn't have any trauma. But then they start to tell me things that, weren't traumatic, but they still had a really big impact on them that caused them sadness. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I have a lot of people like that contact me too. It's like, I have all those symptoms too, but nothing ever happened. I wasn't sexually abused and stuff like that. It's like, am I just blocking out the memories and stuff? But like you said, it's those things. It has that accumulative effect. It really shapes you, even knowing it's invisible in a way, and it's often culturally accepted as well. Because I grew up in Austria, and that a child is to be seen, not heard, wasn't just in my family. It was like a cultural thing, Yeah. And at school too, isn't it? That being silent, and it was different ways. Well, they knew different things back then. I guess they tried to do it right with what they knew back then. It's the same. I always have to tell myself, I did the best I could back then with what I knew back then. Today I know different.
Yep, exactly.
Have different choices, But that's
I love that.
Even when feel like that they didn't have the trauma, that they can still reach out and they can still heal from that, and it doesn't, it's good. It's beautiful for people to know, I think, or important for people to realize that.
I mean, even things like birth order, the whether like the oldest child, and because I know so many people who were the oldest child and the parents just put all this responsibility on them. I did that to my oldest son. But it caused this, huge sense of him feeling the need to always take care of people. Everything was his responsibility, those sorts of things, because he was the oldest child. And but and the parents, we don't need to cause harm.
The intention behind the things is really important, isn't it? It's often easier for people in a sense when your parents are really toxic, like evil, almost sadistic, I mean, there's no doubt that there was no good intention in any of that. But for many of us, they have parents who think they're actually, I have nice parents. I don't know what my issue is, kind of thing. Because often the intention was good, they were loving in their way, and they provided. And some people say, I had everything, growing up, I don't know, we didn't grow up in poverty. We always had food, like, and those kind of things, but it's still, it can make it tricky, isn't it? Yeah. And question and self-doubt our challenges, isn't it? And it's like, no, let's just, this is a struggle. Let's just look at it. It doesn't matter where it came from, or I think when we're comparing our struggles to someone else's, we actually make it bigger, instead of just letting, it's difficult for me, accept that, acknowledge that, and what can I do about it? Kind of, I don't know if this is how you work with it.
Well, and that's a huge thing too. I've from all the different, workshops and just, through my training and talking with people and such. And this was I had so many, but one of the biggest things that I conquered it started last year, and it really has come about in the past month, in January.
Yeah.
Is that fear of judgment.
Oh, yes.
We don't do things because of that fear of judgment, which still boils down to I'm not safe, I'm not loved, or I'm not worthy. But it's so pervasive, and it keeps so many people from shining their light, from being the beautiful people that they are, from trying something new that they're interested in, because they don't want to be perceived as incompetent, right? I'm talking about all my own experiences here. And for me, like going on a Facebook Live video, oh my gosh, people are going to judge me if I don't know how to do turn off the computer or turn off the end. I kept struggling with that. I couldn't find the end the video button on my computer. And I'm like, oh my gosh, people are judging me. Nobody cares, and if they are judging you, it's about them. It's not about you. It's their own thing. So that's like one that I just see is so huge, and it all really comes back down to just loving ourselves. And it's
I find the inner child work really helpful in that, isn't it? That inner dialogue, to seeing yourself, here's the adult me and my younger self is having this struggle. So there's a little bit of a distance there, a gap, isn't there? To bring compassion to yourself, to separate it in the parts. Not to, at the beginning, when I first was introduced to that, I was like, no, I'm already fragmented. Don't split me like this. It took me a little while to love it, but that inner child kind of work is probably my go-to for things like that, the judging, that fear of judging. Yes, it's so so deep. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh yeah, of course. I can just share forever.
Yes. I was just thinking, was there something else that you really like to share with us, or I think that we cover? Was there one other tip or something that you missed, or that pops up for you? That
let me hear.
Are we complete? Are we complete?
Are we complete for this? Let me see. Is there anything else that people want to hear? I don't know. Do you? And you can say no, but I could, if you wanted to, do a quick vibrational upgrade clearing statement for the viewers.
A cleanser for me, or for the people in general?
For everyone who's watching.
Yeah, I think that'd be beautiful, wouldn't it? That'd be something special, different. I've never done that, so let's try it.
I couldn't remember if I did it in our other video. So right.
Yes.
So what I'm going to do, this is exciting.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take it easy on you all too. So I don't want you all on the floor sucking your thumbs tomorrow. So so this is called the Vibrational Upgrade. That's the name of the modality. Clearing statement. So what I will do is I'll just intuitively tune into everybody's emotional bodies. And you, of course, have free will and can say no. But I'll tune into what is in your highest good that is ready to be released now. What emotions are ready to be released now? So I will ask something along the lines of, anywhere and everywhere you've ever been made to feel unloved, would you like to burn up with the flames of transmutation? And so that's just the pillar of fire from source. Then you will want to say yes out loud to invite in that healing energy from whatever you call your higher power. And then I'll say some other things and anything else that comes through. It sounds, I remember the first time Allison had done it, and I'm like, really? But how does that help? But I told you, like, people were crying at the end of it. So, but I don't want you all to cry. I'm going to go gentle on you. So gotta work with the audience here. So, all right, so give me a moment. I'm going to close my eyes. You can close your eyes if you want, but you don't have to, whatever your comfort level is. All right. Okay. So anywhere and everywhere, and anything and everything, and anyone who has ever caused you to feel unloved, unsafe, and unworthy, would you like to burn up with the flames of transmutation?
Yes.
And this is where you can say yes out loud if you like. You do not have to. You have free choice. Wonderful. I will say yes as well. Okay. So give me a moment. All right, so please breathe in through your nostrils and exhale at your own pace. Invite in more energy. We're also going to burn up anywhere you've ever been made to feel that you're not good enough, that nothing you do is good enough. We're burning up anywhere you feel the need to be perfect. We're burning up anywhere you've been told emotions are bad, crying is bad. Anywhere, you've just felt judged for being, as people would say, oversensitive or emotional. We're burning that up. Please breathe in through your nostrils and exhale again. We're burning up anywhere you're feeling angry at the way people have treated you. Anywhere you're unable to forgive yourself and others. Burning up anywhere you've not been able to speak up for yourself or speak your truth, express your feelings for fear of judgment or persecution. We're burning that up. And lastly, let's burn up anywhere you are ticked off at God, where you feel like you just don't belong. You're not connected, you're all alone. Burning up all of that because those are lies. All right, we're going to activate the upgrade now. So give me a moment as we burn this all up in a big bonfire. So all of this is aligning with your highest divine blueprint and all the latent keys and codes and gifts and talents within you and all the blessings and support are aligning for your highest potential and your highest possibilities to be physically actualized in your life right now. We're going to activate that upgrade. So give me a moment. Just imagine beautiful golden shower of blessings and love and peace and calm, just showering all around you now. When you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Oh,
You're welcome. The weirdest thing, it was when you were we were burning it up. I don't even know whether the microphone picked it up, but my stomach was making bubbling noises so loud. So
I didn't hear it, but
I could feel it. Yeah, bizarre.
Love it. Yeah, because some people will have those physical sensations of some kind or other, or will cry or have a pain or and such. And some people won't experience anything, and there's no right or wrong. The energy's still flowing through whether you feel it or not. Yeah. But it's such a beautiful non-invasive, I feel, compared to other modalities, experience. But yet it's so powerful. That is part of what my mentor did for me, for 4 years. And I'm just so honored to be used by the divine in this way.
And I think you're right. I think that's what has drawn me to it too, because like all last year, I was just studying energy to become an energy coach as well. So, but it's that gentleness, isn't it? It's compared to some other modalities out there. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and I so appreciate that you did that for us to share.
My honor.
Yeah, so that everyone can have that kind of experience. It's like it's beautiful. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you for your time. And as I said, I will leave all the details down below, so you can contact Chanin if you want to explore that a little bit further. You'll have the links there to for that. So and yeah, I think that's a beautiful thing to try out. So thank you so much, Chanin.
My honor, Tanya. Thank you so much for having me here.